hobby to start with, but then soon this became my main thing. I was so excited by the whole, prospect of e-commerce and marketing in general. And that's when I moved to the United States and went back to school. And I did a course in data science. Was very fortunate afterwards to kind of get into the Amazon space with a very large Amazon electronics brand. And I, kind of really fell in love with advertising, Amazon advertising. And that's been about like 5 years. And, fast forward to today, I have been living in Canada for the past 4 years. And I am the CEO of PPC Ninja. And PPC Ninja is a software and services company. So we manage PPC for 6, 7, and 8-figure brands. Our software is also used by agencies and also by sellers. It's a self-service platform, and you can kind of use it to get a lot of analytics about your PPC and also run bid optimizations and things like that. So that's kind of my story. I've really been fortunate to know people in this space like Amy. I've really come close to her after like having attended a couple of conferences and just interacted in so many different ways. So I really feel this is kind of my community now, right? This whole Amazon space is like so tight knit and also like so encouraging. I really feel that there's so much that people are giving back to the community. And that's what kind of, keeps us all together and, helps us to kind of keep moving forward. So in my own capacity, I've also kind of tried to do that. I run a lot of mastermind programs and, I used to run them more frequently, but lately being busy, I've kind of cut back on the frequency, but I'm still doing them. So at the end, I'm going to introduce a little bit about that. But for now, I'm just going to mention that we've done 24 of these so far, and each of them run for about 4 weeks, and we go deep into PPC. So yeah, that's kind of my background. I went all over the place, but hope that was okay.
No, that was awesome. So let's get into the brass tacks of things. I love, I can see now if you, being raised in Japan, how the PPC Ninja, the Japanese culture was probably an influence there. And I grew up in Hawaii, so there's a lot of Japanese influence and culture there as well. So I appreciate the Japanese culture a lot. I've never been to Japan. One of these days, my mom was a flight attendant, went quite frequently. So definitely interested. Someday I think I want to make it out, go see all the katanas and all the cool stuff that's out there. Yeah. But I would love to know kind of, you said you kind of learned about Amazon through Etsy and things like that, but what was kind of what drew you to Amazon and that ecosystem? And, kind of when did you first realize that like, hey, I might actually be able to make a business out of e-com and the Amazon platform?
Right. Yeah. I think, just having that e-commerce background with Etsy and also, failing at it many times because, it was so, I think the biggest failure was just the cost of shipping. Like it was just eating into my margin. Like I couldn't manage to compete with very cheap Chinese equivalents of what I was producing. And that was kind of the time when I kind of thought, oh, this is not for me. I mean, this is not going to work. I need to do something different. And I started looking at advertising as a way to kind of make, a lot more sales so that I could have a lot more volume. And so therefore I could kind of cover my costs because all of those one-offs was not going to work, right? Those were not going to be sustainable for very long. So I think the stars were aligned because when I walked into this company, they had an Amazon existence, and they also had presence globally. So it was kind of just a perfect fit because what I was looking for at that time was a way to kind of make things work, like things like you make stuff and then you sell it and it actually gets sold and do all of this profitably. So I think having been kind of burnt out by my own experience and then finding this opportunity where there was so much data that I could kind of play with and kind of learn a lot of tricks very early on is what kind of helped me stay on and be excited, because then I could replicate the success over and over again through multiple launches, and also then started helping other clients who were kind of stuck and they were like, not sure what PPC is all about, not sure whether it's worth it. I mean, there's a lot of people that give up on PPC because it's just so expensive. And I think that's also some of the things that we're going to be talking about today, like just how expensive it is and how to make it worthwhile. Yeah. And I think that it can be made worthwhile based on how you design your PPC strategies and how what your focus is with when it comes to keywords and product targeting and other types of targeting on Amazon, and exactly knowing where to spend or focus on, where to spend your energies on is probably what separates the ordinary PPCer with someone who is more advanced.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking on the separating the the PPC beginner with somebody who's more advanced, how do you recommend people get started with PPC for maximum success?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think at this point, it's just inevitable, right? Using PPC is something that you have to kind of include as part of your strategy. So I think one of the things that you want to make sure you do when it comes to pricing your product, make sure that your pricing is right so that you can afford PPC, because you're not going to be able to do without it, right? That's just a given in these times. And also just because of how pay-to-play Amazon has become, now we're seeing the organic listing #1 actually appearing somewhere around 15 or 16th position on page 1, which just makes it like irrelevant almost, right? Because all the sales are happening above the fold and those spots are just taken up by ads. So more than, I guess, so the biggest shift now is more than focusing on how to get ranking on page 1, which is also important, by the way. It's now the focus is now on how to even show up. Like, how do you compete even with ads? How do you show up on page 1, but then also showing up not just at very high CPCs, but very profitably? Like, how do you do that? How do you make that switch? So I think the thing I would like to say to people who are maybe just starting out is not to follow the crowd in terms of going aggressively after keywords that are, that have high search volume or are expensive. And I guess everybody knows about the long tail and the short tail and all that good stuff. But, even more so these days, you've got to have other strategies, not just going after every kind of large keyword in the space, but, finding low-hanging fruit, having a diversified strategy so that you can compete, because you've got to compete. Otherwise, you're going to get burnt out and it's going to be unsustainable 1 year in, and you'll be like, oh, I can't do this. So knowing those strategies from the get-go might be your best chance at success with Amazon.
Yeah, and that's something that I love about when you present PPC at the different events. You're not just talking about general techniques. You actually get into really cool strategies. One of my favorite strategies that you taught me was on the auto campaigns, to actually split it out by targeting groups. So just putting substitutes in one campaign, just putting compliments in one. I mean, I've seen that do so well, and even much better than product targeting campaigns. So I love how you kind of mix what's available into different strategies for people. So they should definitely check out one of your masterminds, because a lot of your masterminds are free, and you're just there to help people understand this stuff and implement some of these strategies. So it's really great. But along that line, so you mentioned, getting started, not necessarily just following the mainstream, but actually understanding it and having a strategy behind picking those certain keywords and going after that. But what about optimization? I think it's one thing to set up your PPC and use cool strategies, but another thing that people struggle with is optimization. So what optimization systems do you think people should have in place?
Right. So I think with optimization, there is a few different things that you can do to kind of make sure that you're not bleeding, right? And there's different approaches and people do things in different ways, but I think optimization starts from your campaign design stage itself. Like you're not optimizing after the fact, but you're designing for success. I think that's one of the shifts that I want to kind of encourage people to make. You want to design your campaigns and your PPC strategies so that you have the best chance of success and have an easier time optimizing, rather than just launching expensive campaigns and then trying very hard to kind of balance the rising cost per clicks, and then also trying to balance your relevancy and your profitability and so on. So I think the best way to go about this would be to have like a diversified ad strategy from the get-go. And what I mean by that is, when you have all the different ad types targeted from the beginning, you have a better chance at finding out which of those is actually going to work for you. It's like you can't see which ones are going to work unless you try it, right? And if you try it, you're better off doing all of the ad types and then finding out the ones that are actually working and double down on those, and letting go of the ones, or easing off on the ones that are not affordable, right? So however, most people will start with, this is the typical pattern, right? Most people will start with auto campaigns and manual keyword campaigns, both of which are becoming the most expensive ad types. Keywords are becoming more and more and more expensive, and people look at product targeting or category targeting as an afterthought. Like they think, once let me get the keywords going, then I'll add product targeting or category targeting. I would encourage people to think slightly differently. You want to start with product targeting and category targeting from the get-go. And the reason is because these are much more affordable, but people don't realize that they're much more affordable, and they're also the green fields at this point, because not everybody is using product targeting and category targeting the way we could be, right? So I guess I just wanted to share an example. This morning as I was preparing for this, I was looking at brand analytics for one of the keywords that is extremely, I guess, popular, but so everybody's dog sells Bluetooth headphones on Amazon. For some reason, it's one of the most crowded spaces, and you've got like so many sellers selling Bluetooth headphones ranging from $5 Bluetooth headsets to $500 or whatever. So there's a huge range there, but everybody wants to target that keyword, right? That Bluetooth headphones. They want to be right on page one for a $5 product. It's just not, it doesn't align. The whole idea of targeting keywords to show up on page one for a certain keyword, doesn't align with the margins you have on such maybe a cheap product. So I look at brand analytics, right? And I see for this keyword, what are the top three competitors, right? So the top three winning competitors. One was some no-name brand from China. I think it was called JBL Tune or something. It's less than a year old, right? It was launched in Feb of this year. They are ranking number one for Bluetooth headphones. Now, I don't know how they do it. Of course, there's stories behind that we don't necessarily need to get into, but number two is Beats, right? Beats Solo 3, that's number two. And they have a legitimate reason for being number two because they're popular offline. But in this space, these two guys are at the top. Now, if I were to go, let's say I'm selling Bluetooth headphones, and if I were to start targeting quote unquote Bluetooth headphones, I'm going to be, wiped out. Like I won't have any budget to do anything, right? But if I target these guys, these top 3 or 4 or whatever number of products that are already kind of attracting a lot of traffic for that product, and if I catch those people lower down the funnel, which means I've already cleared intent, I know that these people are interested in Bluetooth headphones, I'm going to win those clicks much cheaper. Now, by bottom of funnel, I do not mean like a page that is, far further down on the search results page. I don't mean that. And it's not even just, the product detail page. I am talking about intent, buyer intent, or where they are in their shopper journey. So The point I'm trying to make is that if you target these top competitors, you can actually show up on page one without targeting Bluetooth headphones. You can just target these guys and just piggyback off of their traffic and show up on page one much, much cheaper. And now how do I know that this is going to be much, much cheaper? Well, if you try this experiment, I did it myself this morning. So I started creating a new ad and I put the keyword Bluetooth headphones for a keyword targeting ad to see what the range was that Amazon was giving me, the Amazon recommended bid range. That is calculated based on the past 14 days of data from our peer group, right? Whoever else is selling, that's the range they've been winning auctions at, right? So that range was showing up for me as going between $3 and $6. That's the range per click, per click. If you're selling a $5 product, one click and you're gone, right? Nothing left. Right.
You better pay 20 cents for those headphones.
Right. And with 20 cents, you're not going to get impressions, right? That's the other problem with these the keyword based bidding. Now I look at product targeting for the two products that I just mentioned, the JBL Tune and then the Beat Solo. And I'm looking at how much would it cost to target them. And Amazon is giving me back 23 cents to $1.43. That's the range. And the suggested range in between they're saying is 46 cents. Not bad, right? Not bad. Compare this to $6. I can win this product target for just 46 cents if I set it up right. So that's the kind of difference I'm talking about. Like if you're smart about what you're going after, you can do the same thing that people who are spending a lot of money to be on page one through keyword targets are doing. So that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to kind of touch upon today.
I love that. That's a really good tip for people. So just to summarize, the point is that you're trying to make is for optimization, you really want to look at your strategies from the beginning and you want to try the different campaign types. So not necessarily match types, but the different types of campaigns. Match types are how you set those up within those campaigns because you don't know what you might be missing, right? Yes. These opportunities that you might be missing out on. And it's really interesting when you cast kind of a wider net of ad types, because then that also casts a wider net of placement, and then you can kind of decide what's working for you. And, I'm just thinking of one of my clients right now. We casted a really wide net and we started with different ad types. And her main keywords, the things that she was going after in her exact match campaigns and stuff like that, she wasn't converting well for those, but she was able to get in on a gifting keyword that the auto campaign picked up, and it just flew, like it just took off. And she was on page one organically for a major gifting keyword. And now she's just trying for dear life to hang on to that keyword, especially during this season, right? But she would have never known that, or even been given the chance if she just did an exact match campaign for what she thought were her most relevant keywords by reverse searching her competitors or whatever, right? She would have never even had this opportunity to get on page one for a major short tail gifting keyword. And it's funny because we set up, after that auto campaign took off, we set up another campaign to see if we could isolate that keyword, right? And just like really get a lot more traction on that keyword. That other campaign never took off. Like the auto is just going crazy. So now we're just negative matching all the other stuff in that auto campaign, so it's just like, without the techniques that you just talked about, people could be missing out on keywords that they didn't even realize would be their top selling keywords.
Right. I totally agree. It's all about finding gems in the data, right? Because if you just talk about optimization, there's only very little you can do with certain formulas. You can easily, everybody knows the formula, right? And it's easy to kind of work on the formula and see, okay, if the ACoS is above target, then reduce by so much. If it's below target, increase by so much, right? So that part of it has limited I guess, limited impact. But the other strategies of embedding your success in earlier stages of design of product, or sorry, your campaign design, are what will give you the opportunity to kind of have a lot more going for your PPC, not just managing to a certain ACoS.
To follow up quickly on your example, Amy, I've seen that a ton in my own campaign and in other campaigns, where if you try to take an auto campaign, what's converting, whether it's keywords, whether it's product targets, and you break them out and do manual targeting, for some reason, it won't work. And I think the main reason for that is the auto campaigns that Amazon is now supplying are so good because they're using machine learning to figure out the intent of the purchase, rather than just like, it's one thing to have a target, right? It's one thing to say like, oh, there's somebody shopping for, a big pen. But then there's another intent that might be like, hey, this person is shopping for office supplies and Big Pen is one of the things on their list. So Amazon is getting really, really good at automatically finding out, what the shopper is actually looking for and presenting that to them without your interaction. And that's why you're getting these, really great performances on auto campaigns. The opposite can be true as well, though. You can break out some manual or even start out with some manual campaigns and it'll do awesome. And then the auto campaigns won't work. The other thing to do if that ever happens is kill the auto campaign and start a new one. Honestly, people don't realize, but that can work because it's kind of resetting what Amazon thinks they know about your product. And if you just launched it, they will now take, probably, I don't know, I don't work for Amazon. My guess is they're now going to take signals from some of your other campaigns that you may have had, whether it's auto or manual, and kind of mash them together on that new auto campaign. So that's something you can do to kind of kickstart those kinds of if you're having a bad experience or bad conversion on one type or the other.
Yeah, love it.
So one of the follow-up questions we have is, obviously we've covered a lot of this already, but what about launch? Is there a specific launch strategy that you use for PPC?
Yeah, so when we launch, our campaigns are kind of, again, covering and touching every ad type. Like, we don't launch with just auto and manual. We actually run about 40 or 50 campaigns per ASIN. And that's basically for this reason, right? We're making sure that we're getting all the placements, right? And we're able to find gems wherever we can get them, right? So one of the things that has, I've noticed that works the best at launch for, some of the brands that we work with are category targeting ads. Now, these are broad-based ads. So they're almost like the equivalent of a broad match, but on the product side of things. These going to help us discover new product targets, right? And those can be perfect for then launching new manual campaigns, going specifically after. But then we also notice that, we create like this, kind of momentum by setting up all different ad types, going after a certain category or going after certain products. So you have the manual targets, right? You can go after sponsored brands, product targeting. You can do video ads with product targeting, and you can do display ads. So all 4 ad types can use can use category and product targeting. So I think that's a great way of quickly establishing relevancy between your product and others, because you're paying for it, right? You're making Amazon learn that, hey, when someone saw this ad and they were on this page and then they bought it, it's a signal to them that, these 2 products are related, or there's an interest. The invisible paths that are kind of laid out between all these different all these different products on Amazon, they are not visible to us, but we're establishing them and strengthening those paths by paying for those category targets and so on. So yeah, one of the things that we always do is we launch all ad types, but we make sure that we're running category targets for sure. And then the other ad type that works very well in the beginning, to Andy's point, I think auto campaigns are amazing. And if you set them up the way Amy was talking about in the beginning, by splitting them out into like 4 different targeting groups, each campaign has just one targeting group. And what that does is that it gives you very clean data. And it also gives you the ability to manage those bids and budgets without kind of having them all kind of mixed up into a single campaign, because that doesn't give you much control over your ACoS. And your ACoS for auto campaigns could go really high if it's all mixed up, right? So split them out, and that'll help you have a clean start. Now, the other kind of strategies at launch that I know Amy's also very good at external traffic, and she talks about it a lot, is basically to make sure that there's a diversified stream of external traffic hitting your ASIN from all kinds of places, including like PR or any kind of publication or Google ads, Facebook ads, things like that, even your social media and emails and so on. So all of those kind of signals are important to kind of have a successful launch. Don't be surprised if your ACoS is extremely high in the beginning. It will kind of start to even out maybe 2 months in, a month and a half to 2 months in, and then you can start focusing on the ACoS, but just be prepared for slightly higher than desirable ACoS in the beginning.
Got it. Yeah, completely agree. Diversified traffic is good. The only thing that I'm careful about with auto campaigns is when I first launch a listing, before it's completely indexed, sometimes I will run like, for a few days, I'll run an exact match campaign for like my top 5 keywords before I start an auto campaign, because I want to tell Amazon what my product is, and I want to kind of direct the traffic during those first few days while my listing is getting indexed. Because what I've seen happen when people start an auto campaign before they're completely indexed is Amazon will show it, their product all over the place because it's not indexed enough yet. And then sometimes that can throw off their auto campaigns. So that would be the only thing that I would say about auto campaigns to be careful about in the beginning. But yeah, then right after that, once I know that I'm indexing for like those main keywords and everything is looking good, then whip out that auto campaign, get it going, and definitely use your technique to split up the targeting types inside of the auto campaigns. Love that. So what about organic ranking, right? We talked about external traffic, which is so important. We talked about PPC. What are you using to rank your clients organically for certain keywords?
You just mentioned about indexing, and I think that's one of the very important things that we pay attention to. So we do a pretty thorough job of keyword research when we're researching keywords to put into our title, the bullet points, backend. The backend is the one that kind of gets ignored because there's a tendency to think, okay, I've mentioned everything on my listing, like what else can I put, and then ends up having a bunch of random words that are maybe they're not making sense, right? So they're not maybe not as important to the success of the product as they could be. So I think the strategy of indexing for as many keywords as possible in the back end begins with making sure that you have so this is a technique that I picked up from Stephen Pope, and he really talks about it in depth in a lot of places. But his strategy involves, making sure that the maximum number of permutation and combination of keywords happens early on. And then once those keywords kind of become sticky with more conversions, then you can kind of rotate them out and have more keywords go into the back, right? So that's like a whole process, and I'm sure you guys can find his, his video, he's got some 3 or 4 videos on that, so you can look it up. But that's what we've been testing, and we've seen good results with that. So I think I personally do not have any, I don't need to kind of do any other ranking strategy outside of Amazon, other than maybe just encouraging external traffic to kind of get those initial kind of get the organic kind of listing up. I think, Amy, you're better at that, right? Your whole world is about, finding out which keywords can we rank for, like finding those gems early on. I think that's something that you're pretty good at. But yeah, in our case, we try to make sure that we're we're including as many keywords as possible, making sure misspellings, Spanish words, using the back end of our A+ images and so on. All of those are good places to kind of stuff keywords that you will then start to rank for over time.
Love it. Cool. And then, yeah, I agree. Organic, it's really important to have that amazing SEO foundation. So what about seasonality, right? We're in Q4. We're in this situation now where we need to be thinking about seasonality for our targets, bidding, and budgets. Did you want to say anything about what people should be considering for seasonality?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that really stands out every single time this period of time this Q4 comes around, we look at the data and it says so much about whether or not your products are going to convert, or not. So basically, what we see in the data is giftables versus non-giftables. There's such a big difference between how these two perform during this time of year. So if you have any kind of product that is not a giftable or not something that someone's likely to buy on a Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or even the holidays, then the recommendation that we give out to our audience is to kind of protect yourself, because this is the time when your CPCs are going to be extremely high. And so you don't want to get caught in that mad holiday rush of people just clicking around. The click-through rates are crazy, by the way, right now. It's like going through the roof. Conversions are down. Click-through rate is up. Probably they're just stocking up and making making lists or adding products to their basket and so on, but not buying yet, right? Waiting for Black Friday to come around. But by and large, this time of year is going to be more expensive because people are in the mode of shopping, in the mood for shopping, and in the mode for shopping. So if you don't have a giftable, protect yourself. I just went to yesterday. I went and decreased all of our budgets to $9 for any product that was not a giftable, which we know is not going to convert. It has a history of not converting during Q4. Why would we waste money? Amazon's recommendation at this time of year is always the same. It's increase your bids, increase your budgets, but it's not going to make sense to most people, right? So definitely protect yourself if you're in that category. If you are a giftable, though, you've got to be smart about showing up, having visibility. So making sure that you have coupons running, you have some sort of deals running, because these are what will help you get visibility, and don't miss the traffic. It's for you to take at this point.
Yeah, Rita, that's a great point. One of the things that I've told people for many, many years now, and it continues to be true, is, especially right now, like this week before Black Friday and Cyber Monday, is, like you said, everybody's window shopping, right? So right now, you're really, and I've heard of tons of people, like you said, Amazon will be these things like, raise your bids, get the most sales and all that. But honestly, in terms of return on investment, it's probably going to be negative. So that's great advice. The other thing that, I would love people to know, and I've said this many times before as well, is, if you're ever budgeting out, right, and you have you have a target that's converting, but not converting well in terms of ROI, right, then the fix for that, the easy fix for that, is to start scaling the bids back and raising the budget, right, until you get to the sweet spot where you're not budgeting out. And that's a net positive in terms of return on investment. So just a few things like that, especially going into Q4. Those are, a couple of points to really, really think about. On that same note, what are some other big roadblocks for Amazon sellers to get to profitability when it comes with, dealing with ads and PPC?
Yeah, so I think, in terms of roadblocks, I think just knowing that it is a very competitive space, and also this is a very competitive time when I think the big guys have all the budgets to spend, and it's not going to be for everybody, right? If we're talking specifically about Q4 and Black Friday and the holidays, I think that knowing that these are these are just games that the big boys can play, and it's not for everybody. Just being cognizant of that is important. There's one strategy though I just like to mention, which is remarketing and retargeting. So there's two, but Amazon kind of combines them into the same bucket, and they just call them remarketing. And I just want to mention that you have the ability to reach back to people who have some sort of brand loyalty. Like if you've sold anything for, let's say, a year, you probably have enough people that you can remarket to, right? So using certain ad types like the sponsored display, purchase remarketing, that is one of the greatest ways to kind of get them back, because they are 9 times more likely to buy from you if they have purchased in the past. That's just one tip I want to kind of throw out there. The other one is retargeting. Retargeting is basically about getting people who have maybe not completed their order. They've maybe just abandoned cart or whatever, and you want to just get them back. There is ways to do that also through sponsored display, right? You can do retargeting, even though they call it something else. They call it views remarketing. You can get them back. The only caveat is, for views remarketing, I would recommend like a short window. I think go for the 7-day window if possible. And for purchases remarketing, go for the long window, the 365 days, because it's cool that Amazon allowed that. I mean, it used to be there, then they took it away, and then they brought it back, but slowly. So 365-day look back windows are amazing to get all the people who've purchased from you in the past to come back to you. And this is the best time to kind of do that. So yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question about roadblocks. CPCs are rising, competition is rising. There's also like so many lookalikes. Like, I mean, I can search on anything on Amazon and find a whole page full of stuff that is just the same. I mean, they look the same. They're almost in the same price range. How does one pick, right? And it's very hard to, so I think, how do you differentiate your product from others? That's the other whole thing, which is not anything to do with PPC, but I think it's important because even with PPC, you're showing up on top of the search results page, but you're competing with very similar looking items, and maybe items that are perhaps cheaper than yours, maybe better, maybe have thousands of fake reviews, but that's the reality of Amazon.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I feel like Amazon's trying to push back right now on the creep to Amazon becoming more like eBay, right? People kind of abandoned eBay because they didn't trust the purchase, they didn't trust the quality, the sellers, etc. And I feel like, as much of a pain as it is, because Amazon these days will flag listings and do all kinds of crazy things, which are frustrating. But I think what they're trying to do is to try to boot off some of these non-professional sellers and these kind of like scam artists, or people who are just literally copying, like you said, the same product that's already been done 100 times. They don't want that. I mean, the price, the competitiveness is already there, so it's not really giving anybody a benefit. It's not giving the shopper a benefit because there's already so many options. So at that point, Amazon's kind of like, now why are we showing these, thousands, or, it's the first pages where people are going to purchase. So I have noticed with the algorithm though, as well, is they are now starting to pare down result pages, right? I mean, there might be 100,000, dual insulated cups on Amazon, but when you search now, it's like 2,000 to 3,000. Or a much shorter, a much smaller number, because I think they're starting to realize, like, we don't need to show that many pages of results. All it's going to do is get people like Walmart to steal our data. So it's interesting kind of what they're working with. One of the things that's not really new anymore, but it's still new in terms of the PPC kind of lifespan, is video ads. And I still see so many sellers not utilizing video ads, and it's still one of the best performing if done correctly. Do you have a couple of tips maybe for people who have not done video ads yet, how they can get into the game, and kind of best practices for video ads?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think video ads have a very high click-through rate compared to any of the other ad types. They have a 6x click-through rate at minimum, right? And so that just gives you a lot of advantage over all the other ad types, because it stands out. There's like a engaging, moving visual there that is so eye-catching. I think that, you're right. I mean, not too many people are doing video ads. And, when I ask people, are you doing video ads? They will say yes. And if I ask them how many are you running, they might say something like one or two. Which is kind of interesting to me, because if you're running like 30 or 40 sponsored product keyword based ads, why aren't you running 30 or 40 video ads that are using the exact same keywords? You can just replicate whatever you're doing on the sponsored product side of things into video, including product targeting and category targeting. So that's I totally agree with you. I mean, it's underutilized, and it's also your opportunity, because if others aren't doing it, then you can. Maybe what throws people off is the minimum CPC, which is 25 cents. I think that's the floor that people kind of get intimidated by. And I think one of the tips I have is, try with exact match and phrase match instead of broad, because broad on, the sponsored brand side of things is very different from broad on sponsored products, right? The matching is a little bit more broad on the sponsored brand side of things. And so what I've been doing is I've been using broad match modifiers, and that's one way you can kind of get cleaner data. So try to have broad match modifier instead of broad match. Try to have more exact matches and more phrase matches. But with this, I think you can easily get closer to the number of campaigns that you're running on the sponsored product side of things on the video ad side. You just need one asset, and you can just replicate those ads. It doesn't need to be, you don't need to spend a lot of money on it. In terms of what these video ads need to look like, I don't think there's any clear consensus on, just run this type of ad or that type of ad. There's, pan and zoom type of ads that do quite well. There is very high-end kind of videography based video ads that are also doing well. And then there's animation style video ads that can cost a little bit, but they can be pretty effective especially when your product, there's certain aspects of your product that cannot be shown through 2D or through a video. Like, for example, if you want to show that you're selling masks and there's like 6 layers in your mask, maybe an animation style might help to illustrate that point better than just a 2D or just saying it in words, right? So I think with those 3 styles, you can pick and choose, but we've been testing, and I think all 3 ad types are doing equally well. What you combine it with, like in terms of keywords or targeting, actually is what makes or breaks a video ad. But definitely go for it, because 4x the real estate. There's no other ad type that gives you so much room on page 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And what people don't realize, and I think Amy and I have mentioned this before, is Canva now has like built-in video editing. And like you were saying, if you're just doing like, a word, like the text kind of zooms in and you can have a picture of the product and kind of do a little explainer video on your own, the barrier to entry now is really, really low. And, the other thing is to just do a search for some of your keywords. And if you're not seeing video ads, then there's a huge opportunity, which I do quite frequently. And there's still a lot of people who are not, and what's funny is it's usually the big brands are the ones who don't jump into this stuff early, but I feel like the most video ads I'm seeing are for bigger brands. And the opportunity though is for the little brands, because that's where they actually might be able to compete on that real estate. So that's interesting. The other thing that I love that you mentioned is to go a little tighter on your targeting. The other thing that's really cool with video ads is using a system like Canva, where you can make edits fairly easily. You can do like 5 or 10 different variations where you're not changing a whole lot, but maybe it's just like the background color, and you would be really, really surprised how certain colors, certain fonts, certain picture sizes, the way it's laid out can make a huge difference visually for people who click and then convert. A lot of people don't think of that. So if you took a basic, template of an ad you make, and then you change the background color to 5 different colors, and you maybe make the image on the top right on one and maybe in the top left on the other, things like that, little changes, you can then go out, deploy those and test them and see which one is going to, after a while, going to be the clear winner. And then you can dedicate more of your resources to that ad. So some great things that you can do there with video ads. we were talking, it actually goes great into my next question. You're just talking about match types. For people who are maybe not super experienced in Amazon PPC, can you maybe explain the different kinds of match types and how you see them working the most effective in terms of, maybe stage of a product or launch, or, just kind of success with match types?
Yeah, sure. So the way we, at PPC Ninja, we have a system where we do our keyword research and then kind of sort the entire list descending by popularity. So, so the most popular would be in terms of, let's say, keywords that have made it to brand analytics and they're in the top 50,000 to 100,000 search frequency rank, followed by Helium 10 or Merchant Words or Jungle Scout, whatever your tool of choice is, sorting them descending in this long list. And I do this in Google Sheets, by the way, so it's very easy to insert checklists or check boxes and then just go check, 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 check. And so my strategy is to first kind of get exact matches in. So that's my very first pick. Like I will make sure that the popular keywords are going to be covered by my exact match campaigns. Then next I go to broad matches. I will try to collapse my broad matches into as few as possible so that I don't create data spread. For example, if I have Bluetooth headphones and I have another keyword, Bluetooth headphones for something, or Bluetooth green Bluetooth headphones or whatever, I'm going to try and minimize the broad match keywords to just the core keywords so that I do not spread my data. And I want those core keywords to get as much momentum as possible so that then Amazon will start to recognize them indirectly as the right keywords to show, right? So that would be my next kind of phase. And I go check, 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 collapse as much as possible. Now I might make some exceptions to that rule when I really want to make sure that a word that is very specific and it talks to a specific intent is covered in broad match. So to give you an example, if I did Bluetooth headphones for Mac. Now, Mac is an important word, and I want to make sure that I capture all the intent that includes that word in it. So I will include that as a broad match keyword. And then once I'm done with my broad matches, then I go to my phrase match column, and I look for any opportunities for words that are likely to be used together. And then I identify those and I check those off and then make sure that they're present, because they're not, I'm not bothered with the order. I need to make sure that they're in the exact same order. So that's kind of how I do my research, and I make sure that my campaign sizes are small enough. I don't add more than 20 keywords per campaign, and that's just to make sure that the budget is distributed evenly, even though you can't really direct that. Most of the times Amazon is going to give the early data points a lot more preference, but by and large, you want to make sure that your campaign sizes are small. If you have like 500 keywords, which I believe no one in this day and age does, but there's some people out there that will put a lot of keywords into a campaign. What we see is that a majority of those keywords will not get any impressions, and they will simply just stay there, ignored, completely starved of any attention. And only a handful of the few that did get any kind of movement at the beginning will get exponentially more and more impressions, right? So you want to make sure that your campaign sizes are small. You want to split them out by match type. You don't want to mix a broad match with an exact match, because broad match will move faster than your exact match and take up your budget. So that's kind of how I design my campaigns. Now, one more thing I want to add there is with the broad match modifier. I actually use broad match modifiers across the board, even though I know that the sponsored products tend to have a lot more a cleaner match when it comes to broad matches. I still do the broad match modifier there as well.
Yeah, I love, and a lot of people aren't even familiar with the broad match modifier. And like you said, in terms of like Bluetooth headphone, right? In that phrase, Bluetooth is less important than headphones, right? Because somebody can want headphones when they search headphones. They may not be looking for Bluetooth, but nowadays, majority of people who have devices have Bluetooth built in. So that would be a modifier that you'd probably want to include in your broad match, right? So the plus headphones, and then so Bluetooth plus headphones, if people don't really know, what we're talking about in terms of modifiers. So that's some great tips. Actually, one of my best performing keywords of all time is a broad match modifier. And I've been doing this since 2012. So the other day I pulled up my accounts, and sorted by sales and spend and all that kind of fun stuff. And I just kind of went in just for fun. So that was an interesting thing to look at. So definitely, if you don't know what those are, make sure that you're diving into those. A few quick things here, as we wrap up is, you always hear this one and it's like, oh, I'm already on page 1. Should I turn off my PPC? And, you kind of mentioned in the beginning how organic, rank is getting pushed further and further down. What's your response to that?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't turn off PPC. That's even if I'm ranking number 1, if I see 2 of my products showing there, one as an ad and one as an organic listing, I would rather take that. It's more real estate on page 1. It's less, chance for someone else to kind of get in and steal my sale. I would rather play defensive than, be, more short-term about my approach. I would look at it as the only way to kind of stay there, long term. And for that reason, I would never cut back on my PPC, even if I'm already showing up on page 1, position 1, because that can change anytime. That can change. If you lose it, then there's people who are paying up to 900% of what you're paying through a placement modifier, right? Anyone can get into the first spot if they have a modifier running. So that would just mean you have one less spot on page 1. So I wouldn't do that.
Yep, absolutely. And the other thing, the analogy I always like to use is it'd be like being in a store and being like, oh, I got the end cap, so I'm going to go take my products out of the, my laundry detergent's on the end cap, so I'm going to go take it out of the aisle where it shows up, there, because I've already got the prevalence of that end cap, right? It's like, no, you wouldn't do that. You want your product to appear as many times as possible, be in front of the customer as many times as possible in order to get as many conversions as possible, right? And the more times people see your product, the more likely they are to convert, just like hearing a brand name, right? It's the same kind of thing visually. If you see the same product multiple times on that page, for some reason you're gonna be like, oh, did I look at that one? Is that the one that I thought I wanted? It's just more chance for you to convert. So I absolutely agree with that. We get to the another favorite part of the episode where we love to ask our guests, what they're currently into right now in terms of books, podcasts, personal development, motivational materials, kind of anything that you're into right now, or anything that's really affected your growth, either on Amazon or, in the software or your own business, et cetera. We would love to hear if you have any tips there.
Oh, yeah, sure. So I love listening to this business podcast called Business Lunch. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's by Roland Fraser. And I just love all the strategies that he talks about with, things like buying businesses with zero down, or, how to kind of structure your day, things like that. So I'm really into listening to that podcast, driving around. I've got, important, tips coming in, from this podcast. So I think one of the things that I learned recently is, again, from this podcast, which is, making sure that I structure my day in a way that is kind of meaningful. I start my day with a list, with a to-do list, which is kind of one of the simplest things to do, I guess. You sit down and write, what you want to do during the day. But I'm trying to organize those, to-dos into like these quadrants. The urgency and the urgent and the important quadrants, just to make sure that I know where the priorities lie, because it's so easy to kind of skip that and kind of just go with the flow, just go with whatever comes to you. And I think social media has kind of trained us into being very kind of reactive to whatever is thrown at us. And so I would I would rather kind of just be very intentional about what I pick up. And it's also going to help me to shut off social media to a certain extent. Like I kind of tell myself, okay, I've listened to all the, I've seen all the posts, I've seen all the little videos. I don't need to be scrolling endlessly. I need to stop, right? So I think putting everything into priority and also kind of saying no to a lot more things than yes is what can help and is helping me kind of stay focused throughout the day and accomplish a lot more.
Yeah, I love that advice. I keep telling people I've taken about 6 months off of business books because I've read so
Wow.
many. And, at some point you have to kind of decide, there's so many different books, different ways of doing things, whether it's business, accounting, systems, all these different things. I've read so many. And I think I've gotten to the point now where it's like, okay, spending more time on that's probably not going to help me, right? Because I've got the basis, I've got kind of that more down. So now it's like, okay, what's next? And that's where it's more like personal development, strategic, long-term planning, trying to be blue ocean on whatever you're doing. So I think that's great advice. Absolutely. All right, here's the other time that we give to you to let people know where they can get a hold of you. If you're doing anything new, what you have coming up, anything you want to let people know about, please let them know about that right
Yeah,
now.
absolutely. Yeah, so you can follow me on LinkedIn. I kind of post a lot there. So it's just my full name, Ritu Java on LinkedIn. And then coming up in January is our 25th mastermind. So if anybody's interested, there's a few criteria that you need to clear. And then, it's on our website. So if you go to ppcninja.com and look for PPC Mastermind, you will be able to get details about that. It is a free mastermind program. It's 4 weeks long. And so that was one. And then the other thing is we're also kind of opening up our software to agencies because it's got a lot of cool agency features. And so if there's any agencies out there, no matter how big or small, we're actually giving a pretty good kind of cashback discount of $500 paid over like 5 months. So if anybody's an agency out there and interested in, evaluating our software, we also have a 14-day free trial. So please go ahead and sign up and let us know if you have any questions. We can handle your questions at support@ppcninja.com. So yeah, with that, I guess back to you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Ritu. It was really great to meet you. Great to have you on today. And if anybody has any questions, make sure you join us live every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Pacific time, sellerroundtable.com/live. That's when you actually get to be in the Zoom meeting with us. We don't charge you anything. We stop the live, we stop the recording, and then we answer questions if you jump into the meeting. So make sure you do that. If you haven't yet done so as well, please rate, review, subscribe, share this podcast with someone you know who might find it useful. We really, really appreciate you guys. For the people on the live stream, if you still have a chance, please go vote for the Seller Roundtable podcast at sellerpoll.com. I think we were last in second place. I would love to eke out a win if you guys feel like you got value from us. We really, really appreciate that, guys. And that is all for the Seller Roundtable. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.